Hey everyone, and welcome to the Transgender Show. I'm your host, Emily. It feels like it's been forever since we've been together here. It's been 2 weeks since we've done an episode because of the various things we've had going on. A lot of exciting things. We had some folks come in from out of town who are on the staff to run the table at Ventura Pride. So there was a lot of stuff leading up to that and prepping for that. It was a great turnout. We had a really good time, and wow, let me tell you that some of our staffers are great at hosting tables at Pride events like that, getting people interested, giving out the information. It was a great time. I'm so excited to be back here with y'all, especially with one of the people that I got to know over this last week, Joelle Nunez. Joelle is a 2 times national intercollegiate figure skater, but nowadays you'll find her sharing her trans journey on TikTok, on Instagram, and YouTube. She's known for her Get Ready With Me videos, showcasing her positivity, style, and fashion sense. Everybody, welcome to the show, Joelle.
Hey everyone.
Welcome in. I hope you're having a great night. Thanks so much for coming onto the show.
Of course. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the lovely introduction.
Well, thank you for writing it for me. I love letting people in the little kind of the behind the scenes of fourth wall breaking. It was wonderful to get to know you this week, and we got to hang out and have some fun time together, but also like get to talk about what you're doing in your influencing basically and what we're doing on the Transverse. Again, I really appreciate you agreeing to come on here and share your journey of gender exploration. Make sure we got it. As you'll notice, by their name, she, they are their pronouns, and we'll go ahead and jump into their story now. The one I like to start with is how you chose your name. And I know for a fact that you kept your name. And I wanted to kind of ask you about that. What was the decision behind that to not even adopt a stage name to keep your name, and you know, what is involved in that decision for you?
So I actually did have like a fake name that I went by for a little bit. Um, it was interesting story here. It was actually a fake like male name because my name always felt a little too feminine, and people were always very much like teasing me about it. Um,
Ooh.
in addition to that, people always got my name wrong. My name, sorry, I don't know why I'm losing my voice right now. So yeah, my name is Joelle, and a lot of people would say like Hoel or Joel or like they wouldn't pronounce it right. One time I got Chase. I've gotten Jolene. I've just like people always get my name wrong, so I started to go by a fake name. That was just like easier, simpler, and I did go by that for like a good while on Instagram. And then it just felt inauthentic. Obviously, it didn't feel like me. It was very like, it was a very masculine name. And my birth name just always felt right to me. It always resonated to me. It just made me feel like this is real, like this is who I've always been. And my name, both men and women have the name Joelle. And it definitely resonated with my gender fluidity. So that is kind of how I
Mhm.
came to the decision of keeping my name. Mhm.
So looking back, when did you first realize that that you were non-binary, that that was the identity that fit with you? I know a lot of us kind of struggle to get there, kind of fostering other identities for a while. When did you settle on yours?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really hard question to like put like a concrete like time in which I decided because it was kind of like, over time, like something that I was thinking about, that I was, looking at different identities, seeing what resonated with me. I know growing up, I definitely never felt like I fit in, with the boys or the girls.
Mhm.
Um, growing up, I always wanted to do what the girls were doing, but I wasn't allowed to. And when I was with the boys and I would try to do what the boys would do, I would get bullied and harassed and teased. And I was told that I wasn't allowed to do that. Um, like I wasn't allowed to be with them. It was like I couldn't win, I couldn't be with the
Yeah.
boys, I couldn't be with the girls. And then there were a few times where like I would try to go do like the girl things even without like I would just kind of like break it and I'd be like, you know what, I'm gonna go hang out with the girls, like whatever. And I would feel ostracized, like I didn't feel like I fit in. They would like be like, "Oh no, like you're a boy, like you can't be with us," you know? I wanted to be a girl, but I at the same time, it didn't always feel right to me. And then as I got older, like I never had that long, like that very clear assertion that some trans people have where they're like, "No, like I'm a girl." I didn't have that like super clear realization of that. And it wasn't until I was in college and I took a gender studies course and I learned about the non binary community and other like gender queer identities that I was like, hey, like this is awesome. Like, you don't have to fit into a cookie cutter version of what a man is or what a woman is. You don't have to feel comfortable with those terms of like male or female. Like, you can be whoever you want to be. And that's really where I found comfort in the term gender fluidity, because it really is about just letting yourself be you in whatever feels most authentic and comfortable to you. If I feel like a girl, I'm a girl. If I feel non-binary, I'm non-binary. If I feel like a boy, I'm a boy, you know? And I loved that concept
Hmm.
and it resonated so strongly with me. And I still resonate with it to this day, even though I'm very much like overtly feminine and I do feel like I resonate with female the most, but gender fluidity still gives me that comfort to be myself and not have to subject myself to gender and societal norms.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would say, and I started like clearly identifying probably when I was around 2021
Hmm.
as gender fluid. Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that ability of choosing an identity that allows you to present feminine, but also not feel pressured to. You know, I like that.
Exactly. Mhm.
So, you did mention some of the things when you were young, kind of growing up. What were some of the things that um, resonated with you that kind of were those red flags when you were doing the gender studies course that you looked back on and thought, oh yeah, that is it clearly shows that I'm not a boy, you know, in some other way than just wanting to hang out with the girls.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a hard one. Because again, I mean, like they're all like these things that we try to like calculate. They're all gender and societal norms. Because it's gender is really about how you feel on the inside, right? And presentation, the things that we do, that's more gender expression
Hmm.
as opposed to, or gender presentation, I mean. Um, but for me, like some of, like looking back now, I'm like, you know, I tried on my mom's dress and heels, of course, when I was like a little wee child. I got yelled at and beat by my dad for it, of course, you know, because gotta love the trauma. And I mean, always had an obsession too with like transformations, like growing up. I loved like The Little Mermaid, Sailor Moon, The Winx Club, like any of those like super girly like transformation where there was like a magical like transformation and suddenly they were a different person. I always fell in love with that idea. Sailor Uranus, of course, an icon, a trans icon. So yeah, those were definitely some of the early warning signs. Um, I also I, another thing that really stuck out to me is remembering how I hated being called a man or a boy. Like people would say, like, "Oh, you need to man up," or "You need to be a man," and I always bit my tongue because I always wanted to be like, "I don't want to be a man." Like great, like thank goodness, like finally, you know what I mean? Like you get it because I
Hmm.
don't, you know, I'm not. So I used to like that. That felt good to me when people would be like, "You need to man up," or like, "You're not man enough," and I was like, "Yeah, thank you." um,
Oh, thank you for
and
noticing.
exactly. Or when I would answer the phone and someone would call me like "ma'am" or they thought I was my mom, like I would never correct them. I would just like go along with it, you know. So
As you're
yeah.
taking the gender studies course and you're identifying that this new identity is going to fit with you, was there any
Mhm.
period for you of adjustment of you coming to grips with that fact that you were going to be changing your basically your whole perception of yourself?
Absolutely. Um, when I first started identifying as gender fluid, I mean, no one knew, you know, I knew, I said it to myself. Um, but I didn't tell people that I was gender fluid, not for a long time. Just like really, really, really close friends. I told like one or two people in those first few years. Um, and it gender fluidity again like allowed me to just be myself and kind of like take little strides. um, so as I started identifying as gender fluid, you know, I started painting my nails more, I started wearing heels and leggings, I started like styling my hair a bit more, wearing makeup here and there, just like little things that slowly started building over time. And it really was a slow, like, transition for me, where it was just like little things and I was building it over time. And like, by the time I like full on became like the person you see today, no one was shocked. Everyone was like, yeah, we all kind of like saw it going in this direction at this point.
Do you feel,
um,
looking back, did that make it easier to come out, to transition, to accept yourself, and to kind of deal with the stigma you would face? Or do you feel that that kind of slow process might have drawn it out?
hmm. Personally, in my experience, I think it made it easier for me, just because it was more about like me discovering myself first and foremost. I
Mm.
still wasn't sure who I was. I still wasn't sure what I liked. You know, I wasn't sure if I was going to change my name. Um, I had still been going by like my fake alias name too around that time. Um, and it just it allowed me to like explore without really like coming out to everyone. And I didn't feel like lying because again, gender fluidity is like you are who you are, you know, it doesn't matter. um, so yeah, I would say it definitely made it easier. Sorry, did I answer your question?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. But I just also, so going back to it, I love that gender fluidity kind of gives you that hall pass to, it just gives you that free pass of being whatever you want to at whatever time. I feel it's very common in transition where you early on you identify who you're supposed to be. And then you look at examples of what that is supposed to look like, and then you try and follow that. And of course, you're going to fall very short because you don't know the makeup techniques. You're not familiar with things. You don't know how to walk or talk or some of these other things. And just the amount of time it takes for HRT to take place and the way our bodies react to it differently. So that it's just sort of a setting yourself up for a lot of disappointment. It's wonderful that you were able to find that and kind of ease through the whole thing, discovering your identity as you were going along.
yeah.
So what was your process of well, you did talk about sort of your process of coming out. Once you were ready and had your identity kind of solidified, for lack of a better term, how did you approach it then? Did you kind of like send out a Facebook post or an email to a bunch of folks, or did you do individual conversations? What was your approach to it at that point?
Yeah, so believe it or not, I started with work. um, I actually, when I started my job, there was an option to select gender fluid instead of
Mm,
male or female. And I was like, I don't want to start this job like lying, you know?
mm-hmm,
So, you know, I checked off the gender fluid box and I started my job like identifying as gender fluid. Um, and that was like 3 years ago when I first started. I told my team just because like I felt safe, like the way that they, you know, had like some LGBTQ um, like signs. It just felt very inclusive and I felt comfortable in my team. It was also a really small team of like 10. And I felt just better to get it out in the open from the start. Um, so yeah, that was kind of my first part there. And then in terms of like friends and family, the first people I ever told before my job, because there were like one or two people that I told, were my roommates actually.
mm-hmm,
They were the ones that truly allowed me to be myself, to explore my gender expression, my gender presentation. They were the ones that, like, I would put on makeup and a wig and, like, it wasn't good at all, and, like, I would come out and they would just be like, "Damn, girl, you look so good." And, like, they were always, like, hyping me up. Sorry, I'm, like, getting emotional thinking back about it because, like, it was a beautiful moment, like, the way that my roommates always, cheered me on and, just they gave me that space to be myself without judgment.
Hmm.
And that's hard to find,
Yeah. Yeah, especially we haven't dove in too far about like who your roommates were and how you found them, but it's wonderful that you were able to be paired with folks that were so accepting. Were they guys or girls?
They were actually boys, yes.
Wow.
Some of
That's
my first male friends too, like real male friends that weren't like boyfriends from one of my other friends.
uh-huh.
So,
And were they part of the LGBT community, or were they just super great allies?
so when I first met them, they both identified as straight cis men. Um, and I actually met them through college. So I my first year, I lived on campus, and then my second year, I decided to continue living on campus, but I didn't like the people that I was living with. So I just randomly chose another dorm away from these people. And they just happened to also have been in that dorm. And we, got close by living together. And then they asked me if I wanted to, move in with them because they were going to get an apartment off campus the following year.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, for sure. And then, kind of like the rest was history. We all ended up being really good friends. One of them actually recently came up to us as gender fluid. So,
Oh.
yeah.
Wow, but that's just I love that luck. I mean, it wasn't purely luck because you did take the action into your hands of like this situation isn't working for me. You felt empowered enough to be able to change your situation. And I guess just because of that, karma's like, I'm gonna throw her a bone here. I love that. Was there anybody else in your coming out process that supported you in a way that you weren't expecting?
Right. Yes. I realized I didn't fully answer the coming out question. And I did also want to say, like, when I came out to my siblings first, and my siblings were all very accepting. I have a very queer family. My sister's lesbian, my brother's pansexual. We have one straight sibling, but we don't talk about him very much. And then my mom, I literally just sent her a picture of me in like full girl mode, and I was like, "Mom, look how beautiful I am." um, and she was just like, "Okay, I guess,
Hmm.
My dad is the one who was surprising. So, you know, I don't know if you all remember, but when I was little, my dad was the one who beat me and told me it wasn't okay to wear a dress when I put on my mom's dress and heels when I was a little kid. And I remember growing up, like, I just am a naturally feminine person. No matter how hard I tried, I could not keep the feminine down. Like I was one of those people that you just could not hide your femininity. I had to be feminine. I had to like I couldn't, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't be masculine. Um, and I knew it always bothered my dad, you know. And whenever I would wear like makeup or heels or anything that was just like a little bit more feminine, I could like see it in his face, like the discomfort.
Yeah.
At the same time, my dad was always there. He was always supportive. He was, always um, loving in a way, but he wasn't like enthusiastic and like happy about it. And there were several times where he, after I showed up to something like a family party or I had like, a big event or something that was going on, and I like got dressed up, maybe I added like highlights to my hair or something, and he would leave. He would see me and he'd be there for, a minute or two and then he would get up and leave. He wouldn't say anything super mean to me. He wouldn't, you know, like he didn't do anything like hostile or violent or abusive, but he would just silently leave. And that was always like heartbreaking,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I didn't know how he was going to react because, like, as I was getting more feminine, even though our relationship was getting better and we were communicating more, I felt like he was distancing himself. We were talking a lot on the phones, but he wasn't like staying with me and like seeing me, you know? It was always like behind something, you know,
Yeah.
on the phone or something. And then I remember when I came out to him, he he was just he was so supportive. Like I was very surprised. I came out to him and I'm like, you know, Dad, like sometimes I really do feel like a girl and I'm gonna be more femme presenting and I'm gonna take hormones. Um and I just remember the moment of him being just like, I love you. Like, you know, like do whatever, you know, you feel is necessary. You're an adult. I trust you and I'm so proud of you. And he just kept saying, I love you. My dad is so terrible. He just kept making me cry. But he just kept saying, like, I love you. I love you so much. Like, I'm proud of you. Like, nothing will ever make me not love you, not be in your life. It was just a really, like, nice moment to hear that. Sorry.
No, I know that when you get that support that you're not expecting, especially from somebody who you care about so deeply and whose opinion of you matters so much.
Yeah.
That's very beautiful. I'm so glad that you had that experience. And I mean, yeah, it was so unexpected, right?
Yeah. And what's really surprising too is like our relationship got better. Like, I felt like he just got it. And it's so misogynistic, honestly, and I hate it. I hate that it's sexist, but I'm glad that it worked for us because, like, my dad truly did. I feel like he did flip the switch, you know, and he started to like think about me as a girl, and he sees me as his daughter, you know, and like now he's not uncomfortable with like my femininity, you
Hmm.
know, like he gets my pronouns so well. I can be super femme and like, you know, he's proud of me. He gets it. And it doesn't seem like it makes him uncomfortable. I feel like when I was, you know, a boy and feminine, it bothered him and like there was a sense of shame around me. But now that I'm a girl, you know, he sees me and he's comfortable with my femininity. He's comfortable with me being this, you know, these like societal norms. You know what I mean? You
Hmm.
got me right.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating the way it worked. You know, my parents struggle with the definition and understanding what trans is. And it just seems like perhaps in your father's case, he felt that having a boy, it was his responsibility to teach the boy how to be a man. And so your femininity was sort of his failing. And as you identified, like, no, I think I'm a girl, it sort of took that burden off of him.
Yeah. Hmm. And now we have a great relationship.
That's so amazing to
um,
hear. I'm so happy for you.
mhm.
What were some of the biggest things other than coming out? I know that that can be one of our largest struggles. But were the other things that you really ran up against in your transition?
Um, part of it was like not, I think the most difficult part was was thinking that I'm not like I wouldn't be beautiful, you know. That always like scares you from transitioning.
Mm-hmm.
Man, the hormones are strong today. Yeah, they that scared me from transitioning. I felt like I was never gonna be beautiful. I felt like I'd never be pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, is it worth it? Is it worth it to be yourself if you're not gonna pass? If you're not gonna feel beautiful? If I'm not gonna truly feel comfortable like ever in my body? but I'm so glad that I did, you know? And I know that I'm beautiful. Like, I know that I'm valid. But I mean, there was a stage where I truly didn't feel that, and I would like try. I would style my hair, put on a wig, do my makeup. And I remember like sitting in a mirror. It's a weird feeling. Sorry. Because I remember when I was in a dark place, I would sit at the mirror and I would say, like, what are you doing? You're so ugly. But at the same time, you're so happy.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And I know that's something that so many of us struggle with. The only reason I felt that I was able to begin transition was, having access to Instagram and having those before and after pictures, going through just tons and tons of those, going through before and after videos and seeing how somebody who seemed to have a similar look to me or seemed to be as far or farther from feminine as I was, that was able to make the transition. But still, you get into it and you start taking hormones and you're like, it's not working. I don't get this. I don't understand how to style my hair. My makeup looks like I'm trying. You know, there's so much of that that is so common to our experience at the beginning. And I think, that is just a very valid and normal experience for us. We just run into this early wall of understanding our identity, putting together what that picture is supposed to be like, and being very excited about that and getting all in, all happy and jazzed, and then seeing a different reality in the mirror. You've gone
Yeah.
from a confusion to an acceptance and an understanding, but then what you're seeing in the mirror is not matching that understanding. And you don't know why, except for to attribute it to some flaw in yourself. And that's why I
Yeah.
love people like you who have achieved what you have, this beauty, this style, and this ultra femininity that you were trying to get to, as a way
Yeah.
to show everyone else there is hope. It's just about patience.
Yeah. It was, it was also following, like, regardless of how I felt, like, at that moment, I did feel ugly, but like, I couldn't deny, like, how happy, like, having curled hair, like, my extensions, like, doing my makeup, like, wearing dresses, like, I couldn't deny like the joy of that, you know? And I was like, even if I'm ugly, like, why am I going to keep myself from doing these things that make me happy just so that I can be unhappy some other way? It's like, I'm going to take the little joys that I do have in life, you know? And I had to do that. And instead, I started to practice like validation and self love. And I was like, I am beautiful, like even if I didn't feel it, I kept telling myself, like I practiced daily affirmations and self-love. And that's really what got me through my journey is, I would stand in front of the mirror and anytime, well, in the morning, I would say three compliments about myself. It didn't have to be about my appearance, but I would always do three compliments. And then if I caught myself throughout the day saying something bad about myself, like if I looked in the mirror and I was like, "Ugh, my nose," I would then stop myself and be like, "But your hair is so pretty," or like, "Oh, but your skin is clearing up," you know, or like, "Oh, like your teeth are really white," something like that to counter it. And I would always do three compliments to counter that one negative comment. And then I also worked on self validation because through our journey, there's a lot of people who tell us, bad things. They call us names, they call us slurs. They tell us, that we shouldn't be doing what we're doing, that, we should unalive ourselves, something awful and horrible for just doing what makes us happy.
Mhm.
So it's so important to practice like self-validation and that like no, it doesn't matter what anyone else has to say about you. What matters is how you feel. What matters is if you think you're beautiful, then you are beautiful. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, you know?
Mhm. And I just also
So,
appreciate that note as well, that even if you didn't feel beautiful and you couldn't convince yourself of that, you still found so much security and comfort in the fact that you were finally on your path, you were finally accepting yourself, and you weren't trying to hide it anymore.
mhm, absolutely. Yeah.
We have a very kind of ethereal question that I like to ask here that it could be kind of a stumper, but we'll see how you do with it.
Okay.
On a grand scale, on a deep level for you, what does transition mean to you?
Mm. Well, transition is definitely different for each and every person. Each and every person who goes through, a journey is essentially going through a transition. Cis, trans, non-binary, whoever you are, you're going through a transition. You're going through a journey at some point in your life. We all are, and that is a hard thing to define because it's unique and individual to each person. It makes me like it's like nails on a chalkboard when someone's like, "When did you transition?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, there is no like when. There is no like specific guideline. There's no rule book. Like, who's to say that I'm not still on my trans journey? Who's to say that this isn't my final form? Like, you know what I mean? There's so many like aspects to it, and each person has a different journey. Some people might have surgeries, some people might have go on hormones, some people might do one of those or neither of those. It really just depends on the person. So to me, transition is really about you discovering and going towards your most authentic self. So
Do you
yeah, and
feel
I definitely am still on that journey.
my next I have a follow-up question to that I'll usually ask, but I think we'll skip it this time. That is, how far are you along on your journey? And I love that you don't like to assign a time to that.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I
Still
will ask, as you've moved along your journey, well, from the very start, have
Mhm.
has your have your goals shifted as you've moved along
My goals in what way?
in your
Like,
transition? We'll start a transition. We'll think, oh, I want to have all the surgeries because I want to be a complete and total woman, and so it's important to line up all these dominoes and knock them down one by one. But as we get into it, we kind of discover, no, I don't need to do that. That's not as important to me. Or something that wasn't important before can become important. We can avoid it due to fear or something like that. So, as you've moved along, have your goals or what is important to you in your journey changed?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've grown. I'm definitely a different person than I was at the beginning of my journey. So my goals have definitely shifted as well. When I first started identifying as gender fluid, I didn't think I was gonna start hormones. I didn't think I was going to do any of like, what I'm doing right now. I didn't think I was gonna be like overtly femme presenting 24/7. um, but that definitely did shift. I feel like once I started to become more feminine and I started to like truly see my beauty, it became addicting. It was like, I can't stop now. Like I have to keep going. I have to keep chasing that feeling, that euphoria. Um, and then that's when, even then though, like I started to allow myself to be more feminine. I started to allow myself to wear dresses, to let my hair grow longer. I started to like actually wear makeup most of the time, so I did allow myself to do, a lot of those things that I thought, I was only going to do certain days when I really felt like the need to. Um, and then I remember in terms of starting hormones, I've always had more of like an androgynous body, you know? My body doesn't give me much dysphoria. Like for me, it wasn't like a huge like, "Oh my god, I hate this about myself. I hate my body." Like it wasn't like that. I love my body. I think my body is beautiful. It was really thinking about the future. I remember I was like taking a shower one day and I look down and I see my chest and I'm like starting to grow like chest hair, you know, like I'd never really grown chest hair. And that was like a year ago that I started to like see that growing. And I was like, I don't like this. Like, it's not bad, but like, I don't like this. And then I started thinking about my future. Like, it made me think about that second puberty that we're all bound to go through, you know? Like, the rest of the body hair that I'll continue to grow, you know, the way that my body will start to take shape, the way that it'll become more square, more boxy, the way that my stomach will grow, you know, all of those things kind of like came to my mind and I started to think about what do I want for my future body? Like what do I want my future body to look like? Um, and I'm like, if I had to choose, you know, which one would I go for? And the answer was obvious, and I had to follow that. And that's what like drove me to start hormones. Um, so yeah, and I think that as of right now, you know, I don't want any other surgeries. I don't feel like I want breast augmentation. I don't feel like I want bottom surgery, but I'm also not 100% closed off to it either. If my feelings change, you know, if I do start to feel that dysphoria or, you know, something about me just doesn't feel right, then, you know, it is something that I could potentially take into consideration.
Mm.
But as of right now, I think I'm very happy with, you know, the path that I'm on as of right now.
We talked before about some of the things that you struggled with in your transition. What were some of the key fears that you've run up against as you've moved along, and how have you overcome those?
Can you say that question one more time?
What are some of the key fears within yourself that you have run up against in your transition and coming out and presenting yourself to the world and trying new things as the new identity? And how were you able to overcome those?
Ooh, good question. I mean, obviously there was the beauty issue, and we did talk about how I was able to overcome that with self-love and validation and practicing those affirmations. Um, Work was an obstacle. I think that that was probably the biggest one, where you know, I had started to become mostly femme presenting in my life with friends and family, but I just hadn't done that at work. You know, I hadn't done anything really. Um, while I started that job identifying as gender fluid, I was very much male presenting at work. I didn't try to be feminine. I was scared of it, and uh, some of the managers, you know, would when I first started my job, I should say, they would like enforce the dress code very heavily. And it was annoying to me because even though I identified as gender fluid, it felt like they were expecting and obligating me to abide by the male dress code. So that was difficult. Um, and you know, I took little strides here and there with like my nails painted, like my heels, but I was still really scared to deviate from the collared shirts, the suits, the dressy pants. Um, and we kind of talked about this when we were when I was visiting you, but I went to HR, you know, and I asked them, I'm like, will I lose my job? You know, that's what it came down to. I was like, will I lose my job if I'm presenting at work? Because I was so scared. I remember like being there in the office, I couldn't even get the words out. Like I was struggling just to ask that question. I remember I started like immediately sobbing and crying, and this lady like she doesn't even know what's going on. She's like, "What is happening?" Um, and I finally like I wrote it down to ask her, and she was just like, "You're fine." Like she's like, if you want to dress more feminine and if as long as it meets, you know, the other like as long as it's within the dress code of like either one, she's like, you're fine. She's like,
Hmm.
you don't have to worry about that. And she's like, if anyone gives you a problem, like, you know, you get us involved. And that felt so like relief, you know? And I immediately did. I immediately started like wearing makeup and like being more femme, wearing my skinny jeans. I went to the Christmas party in like this really nice like cape and like some red high heels. Um, yeah. And now I wear dresses. You know, now I'm like full on femme presenting at work.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
It's so interesting that they've had that kind of odd balance of accepting and not accepting. They've got uh, gender fluid on their application form as you're applying for the job, but then they've got this strict dress code that seems very binary, and then it's no big deal for you to dress the other way as long as you're within both. But then I kind of wonder how you navigated with the overlap, or I,
Yeah.
did that conversation give you enough of a carte blanche to do what you wanted?
Yes, yeah, it did. It allowed me to take like, you know, bigger strides. And then eventually it allowed me to like do more. I also think that COVID really helped because, you know, I work from home. This is like my workstation that you're all seeing right here. So I got to really transition from home
Mhm.
without people seeing me. So when I came back, you know, I was really comfortable in like my femme persona to the point where like, you know, it was just, I was like, I'm gonna show up in full femme mode. I don't care what they say. Um, and yeah, but they did. I after that conversation, I noticed the dress code changed. So funny you mentioned that, because the website, I remember checking it when I went back into the office, and they changed it. So it no longer is male and female. It's now like specific items. So it's like shoes, and then it's like types of shoes that you have to be within, and then it's like skirts, and then like the guidelines for skirts. So they do it now by clothing pieces instead of by gender, and it's interesting that it changed after I talked to HR. So who knows? I like to take credit for
That's
it.
great. Yeah, being the trailblazer and setting them on the right path. I love that.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you feel you've been able to accomplish because of your transition?
um, because of my transition. Hmm. I mean, I definitely think my platform, you know, my social media. If you don't know, to anybody watching, I am a beauty influencer. I do a lot of get ready with me videos on TikTok. I do a lot of like outfit, like content, also on my Instagram as well. You can follow me at jo.el_Nunez. Shameless plug, I know. But yeah, I mean, I started documenting my journey through TikTok and Instagram. Not only did it allow me to express myself in a place where I felt like I wouldn't be, you know, ostracized or judged, but rather empowered in my journey. And it just kind of like grew to this bigger thing. It's I actually started just like posting like makeup and like thinking I was just gonna be posting like little makeup videos here and there. And then as I started to like, you know, my journey more and more, I was like, you know, I think I should post this on my social media. And that really like jumpstart my growth. Um, and it encouraged me and empowered me to keep being myself. There's so many supporters now that I have over on TikTok and Instagram, and I love you all so much if you're watching. But yeah.
What is
So,
your favorite thing that you've learned either about yourself or the world around you through your transition?
ooh, the greatest thing I learned, is that
You,
correct?
you the greatest, or just your favorite?
Mm, see. That's a good one. Well, first and foremost, learning about, you know, gender identity, and then your presentation and your sex, you know. So if you don't know, I think we talked about this briefly earlier, but sex is what, you know, you're biologically born as, what you're assigned at birth. Gender is how you identify, that's how you feel on the inside. And presentation is how you present yourself, how you choose to let the world see you. And those may correlate, they may not correlate, and that's perfectly fine. Learning that those things are separate, because I used to believe that like only women could be feminine and only men could be masculine, because that's how I was raised, you know? So learning that was really empowering. And then also learning about the different labels and terms. Those were so fascinating to me, like different gender identities, specifically the term transgender. I used to think that you had to be a trans man or a trans woman in order to be transgender. And I learned that that's not true. It was interesting because I spent like 2, 3 years identifying as gender fluid, believing I wasn't trans, only to find out that I was completely wrong. Because transgender, in its definition, refers to someone who does not identify with their biological sex. So the sheer fact that I was identifying as something other than my biological sex meant that I was transgender.
Mhm.
Um, and I suddenly was like, wow, like I have this huge community that I like had been neglecting, you know? And it was nice to then feel like I could connect and reach out to other trans people and be like, I'm with you, like I'm here. So, yeah.
And finally, what advice do you have to give to younger closeted trans folks out there?
Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Your journey is going to be like a roller coaster, You're going to have all these different things like ups and downs, but you also kind of have to take those risks to feel that euphoria. Um, Also, do it for yourself. We spent so much of our lives trying to fit into these gender and societal norms. We try so hard to be something else that we're not, you know? And there comes a point where it's like, what are you doing? Like what is life if you're not living it for yourself? If you're living it for the satisfaction and comfort of other people, if you are doing certain things, if you are living your life in a way that only pleases other people, but it doesn't do anything for you, what is that life? You know? And for me, that's what really initiated that jump started that transition, that journey. I was like, yeah, I'm scared of being ugly. I'm scared of not knowing who I'm gonna be. So many of these like ifs. I was scared of like, my dad rejecting me, my family not accepting me, my friends leaving me, my work firing me. I was so scared of all of these different things. But at the end of the day, I was like, you know, I I want to be myself, I want to live life for me. I'm tired of being a shell of a person, you know? And I was like, I want to live. That's really what it's about. Like your trans journey is about living. It's about being yourself, living for you and the people that love you, the people that care about you, the people that want to be there and support you, they're going to stay there. And if they don't, then they weren't meant for you. There's a whole other family for you. And I learned that. Like, I'm so thankful to have such a loving and accepting family. I'm so grateful for them. But, like, if I didn't have them, I have so many other, like, people in my life that I consider family who aren't blood because they're there. They supported me through my journey. They held my hand. They were there for me when I was crying, you know? They rooted for me when I wasn't rooting for myself. Those are the people that you want in your life. You don't want people in your life who are telling you how to live your life, who are keeping you from being happy. You don't need people in your life who don't want you to be you, you know? You deserve people who love you and accept you for who you are, whoever you are. So those are my words of advice. And remember, always remember, I tell this to everyone, like every single day at the end of my life. I'm always like, remember to anybody watching, whether you're struggling with your gender identity, sexual orientation, or just in general, no matter what it is, remember, you are valid, you are beautiful, and you deserve to be loved and respected. So don't forget that.
That is so beautiful. Joelle Nunez, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your touching story with us.
Of course, yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so sorry, like, that I kept getting emotional.
No, it's beautiful. Thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you so much for letting me share my journey and my story. I appreciate it.